Hello and welcome to episode 235 of the Newtown Big Dreams podcast. It is June the 24th, 2021, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the West Coast. And the title of today's episode is Drop Kick the Drama with Madonna Hanna. Madonna is in Tacoma, Washington, and this was a fascinating, amazing conversation. She grew up in Boston, just outside of Boston, and she was severely bullied as a young child. She was a black girl in an all-white school in a conservative part of Boston, and she experienced a lot of bullying, and she saw a lot of bullying. And today, she actually views that as a blessing because she was able to develop a thick skin. And now she's able to teach both teachers and kids what to do when you experience bullying. And some really effective ways to deal with that, nip that in the bud. As most of you probably know, that is something that can fester and it can get worse. And it can drive children to depression and even suicide. And one of her friends, she actually experienced this. One of her friends committed suicide because of bullying. So Madonna is an amazing, powerful woman who has learned from this experience. And as a father of 4 daughters, 2 daughters, 2 stepdaughters, I really gained a lot from this conversation and learned some tips about how to build my girls' self-esteem and how to watch out for bullying when it happens so you can take care of it immediately and help teachers to deal with it as well. So let's welcome Madonna to the show right after this.
Welcome to the Newtown Big Dreams podcast, an interview-style talk show that's your gateway to the fabulous and fascinating people who relocated to start a new life. Whether you're new to our podcast or your city, our fellow neighbors from across Canada, North America, and the entire English-speaking world share their stories of reaching new horizons and big dreams. So sit back and relax as we navigate in-depth and intimate conversations with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, executives, creatives, and anyone who can share their story about their Newtown big dreams. And now, here's your host, Luke J. Menkes.
So, Madonna, welcome to the show. It's great to see you today.
Well, it's great to see you too, Luke. Luke, where are you?
I'm in a city called Kelowna, which is in British Columbia. So it is a 4-hour drive from the coast, from Vancouver, which is Canada's second largest city. And
Okay.
I'm 4-hour drive from there.
Well, that sort of makes us.
So tell us.
I was going to say,
Yeah,
okay,
sort of
that
neighbors.
sort of makes us neighbors because you're in Vancouver, near Vancouver, and I'm in Tacoma, Washington, and
Right.
I've visited Vancouver a couple of times. Now, I was not raised in Tacoma. I was actually raised in Stoughton, Massachusetts, which is about 20 miles south of Boston. And whenever people ask me where I was raised, I always say Boston, because who the heck knows Stoughton unless you know Massachusetts? And then if someone says, "Oh, well, I'm from Massachusetts too," then I'll say I was raised in Stoughton. I actually love the New England area, the history, because when you grow up in the Boston area, it is very, very historic. It's where the Revolutionary War started, and there's something about passing by Benjamin Franklin's home or the place where Paul Revere was making silver, and it's just a really beautiful and historic place. I will tell you that I do miss the food
Really?
On the East Coast. Yes. My husband and I moved to Washington State in the late 70s. And I worked in the fashion industry on the East Coast. And when I told them that I was going to Washington, they were so excited for me. They said, "You're going to DC?" And I said, "No, darlings, I'm going to Washington State." Do you know how horrifying that was to my fashion people? Yeah, because they said Washington State, because really on the East Coast, the only thing we knew about Washington State was that it rained all the time. There were farmers. And the most fashionable thing that we knew about was the Space Needle, only because some of our salesmen would take buyers from the various department stores over there for lunch or dinner. And that's all we knew. That's all we knew. Coming out here, there are many areas of the Pacific Northwest that remind us of New England. And of course, there were settlers from the East Coast who, of course, went west, and settled here. But as I did mention, I do miss real cheesecake. It's too creamy. It is too creamy out here. It's supposed to be thick and dense. And clam chowder. Oh my gosh, I miss the New England clam chowder. Of course, there's Manhattan clam chowder too, which is red. But I miss seeing lobsters with claws because I noticed a lot of places sell the lobster tails, and I was wondering what happened to the rest of the lobsters. So yes, and growing up in Boston area, every year periodically, there would be a film clip of a bridge twisting and turning. And I never keyed into it because as a child, I would see the clip and think, ooh, I would never want to be on that bridge. Well, lo and behold, do you know what bridge I'm talking about? Galloping Gertie?
I'm not sure.
Okay, the Narrows Bridge in Tacoma.
Okay,
the Narrows Bridge. And little did I know that I would be traveling across that bridge twice a day, living in Tacoma and working in Bremerton. So it's just kind of a small world kind of thing, as a child, to see a historical news clip of when the Narrows Bridge kind of fell down or something like that. Galloping Gertie. Yes.
Neat. So tell us why you say in your bio, "Thank goodness I was bullied." What's the story there?
As I said, I was raised in actually a conservative white suburb of Boston. And in my elementary school, I was the only colored kid in class.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. That led me to being bullied, not by all the children, thank goodness, but when you're bullied by 3 or 4 kids regularly, grade after grade after grade, and I say thank goodness for being bullied because I can look back now and realize that I was able to survive, grow a thick skin, and to be very sympathetic toward people who are bullied. There was an incident in junior high school. So I was coming out of gym, going into the locker room. my locker was open and my wallet was gone. And I was looking around, and two white girls approached me, threw my wallet at me. They'd taken the money out, called me the N-word, and pushed me into my locker, which kind of scratched me up and stuff. And I was just bleeding a little bit. I told the gym teacher, and she just looked at me, Luke, and said, "Now, Madonna, those are nice girls, and they wouldn't do anything like that." Luke,
Now, do you think that teacher was just ignorant, or she really believed that those girls wouldn't do that?
Luke, I was in junior high school, and when I look back on it, I was crying. I'm weighing 99 pounds, and she, if you could have seen the look on her face, I mean, she had these piercing blue eyes, and she said, "Now, Madonna, those are nice girls." I mean, I'm scratched up, Luke. I'm bleeding.
Wow.
And when I went back to my locker, the same girls, walked over to me again and said, "Tattletale." I was like, I can't catch a break here. I can't catch a break.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, Luke, that later in high school, I don't know if it's my freshman or sophomore year, those same two girls came to sit with me in the cafeteria in the morning before we were allowed to go to our home rooms. And I remember thinking, oh no, what's going to happen? Because when you're always bullied, and when kids who have bullied you before, come over and sit with you, your guard comes up like, oh gosh, what's going to happen? But they were nice. They were nice. And I wish I had asked them, like, what happened from junior high school to high school? I wish I had asked, but they were very nice. The other shoe didn't drop. So there's always hope. There's always hope.
Yeah, for sure. So you learned a lot from those experiences. How do kids, and you mentioned that it was just 3 or 4 kids, typically. It wasn't the entire class that was engaged in the bullying. It's just a handful. How do you prevent a classroom from getting hijacked by 3, 4, 5 bullies?
Luke, I didn't set out to become an educator. I taught fashion marketing for 32 years in the Bremerton and Tacoma school districts. And I remembered the gym teacher and some of the other teachers growing up. And I knew that, yes, I'm teaching fashion, but there isn't going to be any bullying in my classroom. Everybody's going to be polite because civility counts. And I let the students know that there wasn't going to be any bullying because I had been bullied and I know what it's like. I know how sneaky bullies can be and how bullies can poke fun at people. And then when you call them on it, oh, I was just joking. I didn't mean it. I would say, no,
right.
You meant it. You didn't mean for me to hear it or see it, but you meant it. I think what's really important for educators so that the bullies don't hijack your classroom is to put your foot down and say, it's not happening in here. If it does, here are the consequences.
Yeah.
Here are the consequences. And once those kids know, once the bullies know that they're not going to get away with it, and you mean it, you absolutely mean it, then they'll pretty much settle down. And in fact, that's what they did. And I'll tell you something, Luke, that when you can let the students know what your expectations are as far as saying please, thank you. And if you don't like somebody, I would tell the students, I don't care who you don't like, because when you go out in the outside world, there are going to be very few people that you like, when you're out there working. You are going to have to get along, find a way to get along, find something to like about someone. I don't care if it's the little, fingernail on the pinky finger. Find something to like. And in the meantime, what I did was a lot of leadership, teamwork activities so that the students could get to know each other. And that actually worked out very, very well. Within the first 2 weeks of school or so, the students were all on board. And part of that also was because of my executive retail training. In management, we're taught to get the team on board and have them reach a goal. And once they reach that goal, well, there's always another goal to reach. What I found out was when you set these expectations for students is that it creates a calm classroom. And when you have a calm classroom where students know they're not going to be ridiculed, that they're going to be respected by everyone, then they will feel free to ask questions and accept help from other students. And also they will look forward to coming to class, and a lot of work can be produced. Because, here I am. You can tell I'm, coming out of the retail industry. A lot of work will be produced. Students are more on task. They follow directions better because they're comfortable, and more work is accomplished in the classroom, and there's more of a feeling of camaraderie. And an exercise that I used to do at the end of each semester, it was an exercise where the students had to receive compliments. It was called bombardment. Everybody in the classroom had to give a compliment to one person, and that one person had to take it. They had to stand up and take it. And it was such a wonderful activity because the students found out what the other students liked and thought about them. And plus it's always good for teenagers to receive compliments and to know how to give a compliment too.
Yes, for sure. That's a great thing. And I'm wondering, that experience when you saw the same girls in a future class and they were nice, would you say that was the turning point for you? From being a victim to a victor, or was there another?
Oh my goodness, there was another. There was another turning point. And when I was a senior in high school, a sophomore by the name of Beth was bullied because she was tall and very much overweight. If I had to guess, maybe she was about 280, and wore very thick glasses and her eyes crossed, and she had like brown cotton candy kind of hair. She was in the school choir, and the kids would make fun of her because she was the tallest, biggest person there. And sometimes you'd hear them say, yeah, she's wearing a pup tent because they couldn't find a robe big enough for her. And she was also on the drill team, which is a high profile event. And during halftime at football games, kids would just, call her all sorts of names. And there Beth was, front and forward. And anytime she was teased, Luke, I'm going to be honest, I was glad, because then I wasn't teased. And anybody who has been teased, they'll agree with me that when somebody else is being teased, you feel a sense of relief that it's not you this time. And that's selfish, but
right.
Like I said, anybody who's been bullied, you know what I'm talking about, that sense of relief. And during the school year, Beth had been out for about 2 months. When she returned, people could barely believe it was her. She had lost a lot of weight, and I believe she was probably down to what should have been her natural weight. And she was gorgeous.
Okay.
She was gorgeous. Everybody was like, wow, she looks like she just stepped out of a fashion magazine. And I did notice a beautiful glow. I didn't know why she was glowing. And I don't know if anybody else saw the glow besides me, just walking down the hall. That, I believe, was like on a Wednesday. Monday, after the Pledge of Allegiance, the principal said that he had a special announcement he wanted to make, that Beth's mother had stopped by and left a note for him to read to the school. And he said that Beth had passed away. She had had cancer.
Wow.
She had had cancer. And the doctor told her that she had a week to live.
Wow.
And that she could, rest comfortably at home. But she wanted to go to school. She wanted to go to school. And in the note that the principal read, he said that her mother said that Beth loved the high school. She loved being in the choir. She loved supporting the school by being on the drill team. I'll tell you, you couldn't hear a pin drop in the homeroom because everybody's thinking about all the mean things that were said about her. And Luke, I was angry at Beth. I was sitting at my desk and I was angry.
Really?
Yeah, the 17-year-old me was angry because if it had been me and I knew I had a week to live, I wouldn't have gone back to a school where I had been teased. That's me. That's a 17-year-old me saying, no, I will stay home. A few days later, I began to realize, because I kept thinking about Beth, kept thinking about her. And I thought, darn it, that girl embraced life. She lived her life the way she wanted to. She knew she was being teased because she was in the choir and, just the cracks people would make about her weight. But she did it anyway.
Yeah.
She did it anyway. And I thought, you know what? I can't change the color of my skin. I can't. I just can't. Being teased by white kids, and then I was teased by inner city black kids too. When I would visit my cousins in Boston, while I was teased, I was called an Oreo, black on the outside, white on the inside. And the black kids would say, oh, you think you're better than us because, you go to, you live in a white neighborhood. And plus me saying words like gosh, and that's gross. That didn't help things, Luke. That didn't help things at all. So I remember, thinking, once again, I can't catch a break because the white kids remind me what color I am, and the black kids don't like me because they say, oh, you think you're white and you think you're better than us. And it's like, what am I going to do? And it was the influence of Beth that was the turning point. There were things I wanted to do, pursue a career in the fashion industry. And I said, this is it. This is me. I can't help what people think of me. If they don't like me because of the color of my skin, that's their problem. And the fact that I had been bullied, it's like, you know what? This is me, and I'm going forward because I cannot do anything about the color of my skin. And I wanted to make sure to keep Beth in a special place in my heart because, you know, in my own way, I was mean to her. And then,
how so?
Because like I said, I was glad when she was being bullied and I wasn't. And then for me to be angry about the decision that she made and then having to come to the realization that she lived her own life. So I was embarrassed for what I was thinking about her until I got to a point where, wow, she lived her life on her own terms. And that became an inspiration for me. And that is why I like to tell her story, you know, how, you know, she empowered me.
Yeah. This is one of the most difficult things that kids can face going through school. And, you know, you've learned so much. You could give advice because in hindsight, you can, you can see.
Exactly. And as an educator, I created various anti-bullying campaigns and projects. One of which was Flights of Fancy, a fashion show that featured the students with special needs, and my students would teach them how to model and you know, dress them for the fashion show. But before that, I had to give my students a sales pitch about, we're going to do a fashion show for students with special needs. And my students are like, you mean we're not going to be in the fashion show? Well, you're going to be in one fashion show instead of two. But think about how great this is going to be because you are going to have a chance to give to someone else who doesn't have that opportunity to be front and forward on stage looking fabulous, you know, with the hair, the makeup, and oh, this is going to be great. And then we talked about how people are different and why some of them were apprehensive because they said, well, I'm afraid. What the heck are you afraid of? Well, because sometimes they're scary. Oh, like you don't know scary people? Scary people are, you know, come in all shapes and sizes and come on. But those are some of the things that I had to address before the two groups came together. And Luke, there were some wonderful things that happened. I can remember one of the guys who was on the football team who was in my class who had befriended the model that had been matched up with him. I can remember him telling me that it was lunch, and this young man with special needs was, you know, kind of looking around for a place to sit, and the guy on the football team said, "Hey, come sit with me." And his friends said, "We don't want him sitting with us." And the student from my class said, and he was using my terms, "You have two choices. You can either stay here and have lunch, or you can get up and leave." And I was so proud when he said that because he was taking a stand because he had gotten to know this young man through this project, and was, hey, come on out. We know each other now. He's cool. Come on over here and sit. And then to be able to have the courage to say to your friends, you know how you guys are, to say to your friends, buddy, you got two choices. You either leave or sit here. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. And I want to think that never would have happened, if there hadn't been that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So what is your best piece of advice for a child who's going through that? Maybe they don't have a teacher who is as sympathetic and as wise as you in the picture. So what would you tell a child that's going through this?
As a motivational speaker, and I have been out to middle schools and high schools to talk about bullying. The advice that I give to kids is, I know it seems really hard and difficult, but you can get through it. And I'm proof of that. I'm the kid that would sit at a lunch table by myself. And when I'm looking out at the audience, I know the kids who sit at a table by themselves by, the look on their face and their mannerism.
You can tell.
Believe me, I can tell the kids that are bullied, and I can tell the bullies, and I can tell the satellites who hang around the bullies. And I tell them that you have so much that's going on with you that's positive, and you've got talent, and that you just need to be who you are. Now, you can tell if you're being bullied, especially if somebody is physically harming you, you need to tell, and you need to keep telling. But what I tell all the kids is that those of you who are bystanders, who are watching the bullying going on, you are the ones that have the most power. Because in a group, you can go over and you can say, stop. Stop. This is not right. And I'll tell you, when I speak, I get after the satellites, the kids who hang around the bullies. I tell them that you have given your power to someone around your own age who, if you woke up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and had to go to the hospital, they're not going to be the one to take you there. They're not going to be the one to help you pay your rent, do this and do that. And you've given your power away to them. You are at their beckoning call. Live your own life. But you guys cannot leave one at a time, because if you do, the bully will get mad and have all the other satellites go after you because they're intimidated. You all have to leave at the same time and live your own life. And boy, I'll tell you, I can see the satellites like getting kind of antsy, and the bully is like always glaring at me. The bullies are always like glaring at me like, I hate this woman. Because they'll lose their power because they need the satellites, right? They need them. But if all the satellites leave together, then the bully is left alone. And I've had bullies in my class, and I've gotten to know them. And they can be pretty nice people. And sometimes I'll even, like one time during class, I asked, how did you turn into a bully? And they told me, and the rest of the class. Usually they start off as nice people, and then people started picking on them, kind of like, in my case. And then they just said, well, I'm just going to be mean back. I'm going to be mean back.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
it's like, oh, okay.
I think you could tell me if this is true, but I believe in a lot of these cases, these kids are bullied at home. They've got maybe mean parents that are pushing them around, and the only way they can feel a sense of power is by taking it out on the little kids.
Yes, or
has that been your experience
and
too?
also siblings, older siblings. Yes,
Siblings,
yes.
Yeah.
Luke, what always touches my heart is that after I give my speech, there's always a crowd of children around me who will come up and, oh, thank you, or they'll, well, can I speak to you? And I know they're going to tell me a little story about, someone who's bullying them, or their older, sibling is bullying them. And, and I usually ask their name, and then I will, leave it in the office or with their teacher or something to follow up and talk to the students about it. And usually, and I think I will suggest this to more schools, is that usually after the assembly, the kids go back and that's it. But I know some schools, the teachers talk about, well, okay, what did you learn from what our speaker said? What did you learn? What can we do about, bullying? What are some of the ideas that she shared? And in fact, sometimes a teacher will have the students write me notes on an index card and send them to me. And some of them will say, I would have been your friend. Or they'll say, I'm sorry that happened to you. Or, that they were bullied. And some kids, I guess I just really reached and said, well, I'm a bully, but I don't think I'm going to be a bully anymore. But yes,
That's
I
nice.
just think that it's always good when there's some kind of follow up, because once I, have told them about me being pushed into the locker and especially with Beth, they can, in fact, Luke, oh my goodness, one high school I went to, and I told them about how Beth returned to school. She looked gorgeous. She had lost weight and looked like a model. And, and it was, due to the fact that she had cancer. Well, the kids started applauding because she had lost all this weight. And that was the first time that had happened when I gave the speech that, it's like, I'm thinking, kids, this is not a diet that you want to go on, but they were, the whole auditorium was clapping. And I was like, well, okay, all right, and yeah, but you never know, when you're giving a when you're giving a presentation. Well, sometimes you do, you get thrown off a little bit, but you usually afterwards, like I said, the kids, whether it's middle school or high school, they'll come up and speak to me and say, I would have been your friend, or I'm not going to be a bystander. I'm going to get a group of friends, and next time we see somebody being bullied, we're going to go over and we're going to stop it.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Sounds very powerful.
Oh,
very powerful.
actually, it is. It is. It
Yeah.
is.
Is it pretty easy for educators to implement some of these things that you're talking about, or do they need a lot of teaching to deal with this?
Honestly, Luke, because I was able to let my students know what the expectations are. And I believe that because I came out of management, and like I said before, in management, you're trained to get your people to move toward a goal. So when there's a situation, you need to overcome the situation so that the team moves on to do what they're supposed to do, because time is money in the fashion industry and other places too. So that was my mentality, that if bullying is going to be a problem, I need to solve it so that it doesn't disrupt my teaching and the student learning. So that was my mindset, and that was why I was one of the reasons why I was successful. And of course, the fact that I was bullied and that I had a teacher who did nothing about it. And I said, well, that's not going to be me. Now, I am going to say that I think some teachers would like to, but they might be scared to confront a student who is trying to hijack the class. I'm sure when you look back on your own education, there were kids that just were so disruptive in class. Sometimes they did it so they could go to the office, be sent to the office. And sometimes they did it because they could, because they knew the teacher wasn't going to do anything about it. And that, and I was also inspired by, because you reminded me of something about a teacher I had in middle school, Mrs. Murphy, our math teacher. She was absent one day, and boy, we had a novice. So she was a substitute, and there were two boys in the class that made her cry. And she ran out of the room crying. We'd never had a situation where we were left alone and to watch a teacher break down and cry from these guys that were, they were vicious. They just went after her. And the rest of us sat there in shock. The next day, our first class, because we were like in pods or something, our first class was art. And here came Mrs. Murphy. We were going to be in her class next. She said, "Excuse me, Mr. Medeiros. May I please take a few moments to speak to this class?" And we're all there like, oh no. And Mrs. Murphy, God love that woman. She read us the riot act. She let us know that she had never been so embarrassed in her life. And how dare we disrespect that teacher? And how dare the rest of us allow, the students that did? And we were just sitting there like, oh my gosh. And then the art teacher starts looking at us like, and we're all like, oh no. And then Mrs. Murphy says, Mr. Medeiros, thank you very much. And he said, you're welcome, Mrs. Murphy. And then Mr. Medeiros says to us, I don't want to look at your faces this hour. Everybody put your head down on the desk. I mean, yay! Don't you just wish something like that would happen again? And Mr. Medeiros, the art teacher, was ashamed of us. And I just channeled Mrs. Murphy. That's not happening. Nobody's going to be bullied. And yes, you just put that in my mind about, what teachers can do. Because the art teacher, he could have gone on with the art class, but to be in solidarity with Mrs. Murphy, yeah. And that always stuck with me, that's how you do it. That's old school. That's how you do it, Yes.
Right. That's awesome. That's so great. So we just have a limited amount of time. I want to shift gears a little bit. You started to do competitive sprinting at the age of 57.
Yeah.
Tell it what made you wake up one day and say, I'm gonna be a competitive sprinter at the age of 57.
Luke, it was just something that was nagging at me. And I wasn't an athlete in school. I wasn't an athlete. I went in the fashion industry. And it was just something I guess I was meant to do. My husband had track experience, so he became my coach. I entered the Washington State Senior Games, the 50 and the 100 meters, and I won. I beat women who'd been doing this all their lives, and they compete around the country and around the world. And then I competed in the national senior games, and and I have just been for the last 10 years competing. For the last 2 years, I have a new coach. My husband passed away from cancer. And one of his last requests was that I continue to race and to build up my thighs and wear red, white, and blue at the next national, the next national meet. And my new coach is Marcus Chambers, Team USA track and field 400 meter specialist. He is now my coach, and he is coaching me to the next Washington State meet, which will be next month, and the national, which is May. And sometimes we just don't know in life what we're going to wind up doing. And plus, I'm writing a monthly chronicle, chronicling my journey for the local seniors. I'm writing an article in the senior scene, me, the widow boomer with my millennial, my millennial elite sprinter. He's a professional athlete, and it's like we have these adventures on the track, and like I said, one never knows what one is going to do.
So he's a millennial. I remember when my dad was alive, he always made such a big deal about age. Like, older person shouldn't really take a younger person seriously or listen to them, except in very rare cases. That was my dad's old-fashioned attitude. So has it been a little bit challenging having a millennial coach instructing you and, correcting your form and telling you what to do and what not to do?
Luke, I'll tell you and your listeners, when I retired in 2012, I was teaching millennials, and now a millennial is coaching me, and he's an expert. What can I say? He is an expert. When we're out on the track, he is in charge. He's NCAA All-American, Pac-12 champion. He's tried out for the Olympics twice. And will again the next time around. In fact, I went to the Olympic trials last Friday, and he's going to go for it again. So, me, a person who has been in management and also knows about teamwork, I got to put my teamwork hat on, and what he says goes, because he is the expert, and I am grateful to have a world-class athlete as a coach. And I have found out that not many midlife athletes or mature athletes like myself can even get a coach. They might be good athletes, but there are coaches who want to coach, the younger athletes and not midlife people like myself. And also I am helping Marcus with his he eventually wants to go into business, and I've got the background, the vocational background, and I can help him there. So it has turned into a really good partnership where we have been able to assist each other.
That's great. The last question I want to ask you, I'm going to turn 52 on Saturday. So what advice do you have for me and for those of us who are considering playing a sport? When I was a kid, I played baseball. I played hockey. I loved it. I did running as well as a teenager. I did 5K, 10K, long distance stuff. I did 1 marathon, 2 half marathons, a whole bunch of 5K and 10K. But, into my 20s, I started to party a little bit, and then I started to become a businessman. So what advice do you have for me and others my age if we want to think about taking up a sport?
All right. I'm glad that you asked. First of all, happy birthday, Luke. You're going to be 52 years young. And I do have an article coming out in a publication called The Ethel, which is an AARP publication. And they asked me that question. Mm-hmm. What advice? First, go to a doctor and find out how you are physically. What do you need to do? What's your health like? And you mentioned those various sports that you played as a child. Is that what you want to do? Again, get out there and find a senior team?
Maybe.
Pardon me? That's
maybe.
Oh, okay. Maybe. And also find out, well, actually what I would do is I would find out about the senior teams and go visit, watch, talk to some of the players, find out what's involved. Is there any training? Do they train together? Do they train separately? Because I'm going to tell you, I just thought that you just get out there and run. I had no idea. With Marcus, I'm lifting weights. I'm rowing. I'm the stationary bike. I'm doing strength exercises. I'm doing this and I just thought runners used their legs. There's so much more that's involved. So find out everything that's involved and make sure you don't overdo, because you don't want to hurt yourself, because the older we get, the longer it takes us to recover. And I would just say, just go for it. If you want to play a sport, I would suggest you start walking first, just to, get things going, because motion is the lotion, and just do some exercises, go to, the local Y, or just some place where you can basically be around other people, get into shape slowly, and just go for it. And like I said, pick up a sport maybe that you used to play because you're familiar with that sport. Me, like I said, I didn't do anything. And now I just said, I just feel like running. And it was something that I was meant to do. And I'm fitter. I've got muscle tones. I'm eating cottage cheese and arugula. There's just food I never thought I'd be eating. I didn't even know what arugula was, but I know now. So just go for it.
Perfect. That's what I'm going to do. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So Madonna, what is the best way for people to follow you, read your columns? Where do we find you?
You can find me Instagram at Madonna Fit, Fast, and Fabulous. So that's Instagram at Madonna Fit, Fast, and Fabulous. Okay. Facebook, Madonna B, as in boy, Hanna. I had no idea there were so many Madonna Hannas in the world. So it's got to be Madonna B Hanna on Facebook. And there's my website, dropkickthedrama.com.
Okay. That sounds great. So we'll put links to all of that in the show notes. And so many fascinating stories. I could talk to you for hours, Madonna. I mean, I loved hearing the stories of how you were able to turn kids around, both the kids that were being bullied, and in some cases, even some of the bullies.
Oh, yes.
Said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And that's a really heartwarming thing to hear, that it is possible to make it better for the kids.
It is.
That's really great.
It is.
Awesome. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, you're very welcome, Luke. Have fun up there. Wait a minute. Cologne? Is that where you said you were?
Kelowna.
Well, I was close. Kelowna.
Pretty close.
Yes. And
pretty close.
This has been a pleasure, and I really appreciate having fun with you. And happy birthday, Luke. Happy birthday, darling.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Newtown Big Dreams podcast with your host, Luke Menkes, and his authentic guests. And we love our listeners and hope you subscribe now to learn more about the amazing journeys of our incredible guests who relocated to find a new town, big dreams. And remember, make your dreams big.